times. And his album, Debí Tirar Más Fotos, it's the #1 global album. Bottom line, his fans spoke loud and listened louder.
Last weekend, São Paulo didn't just host a show. It exploded. The city felt different from the moment the sun came up, like something massive was about to go down. You could feel it in the air, that electric tension, that restless buzz that makes people check their phones every 5 minutes. Streets were jammed, timelines were flooded, and thousands kept moving in one direction like the whole city was being pulled by a magnet.
Titi me preguntó si tengo muchas novias. Good job.
And the reason? Bad Bunny was finally stepping onto Brazilian soil for the first time. This wasn't just another tour stop. This felt historic.
But the numbers say that his listeners might be getting ready for his upcoming performance.
It wasn't only die-hard fans losing their minds. Taxi drivers were talking about it. Hotel lobbies were packed. Restaurants were booked out. Even street vendors were moving like it was a national holiday. The energy spilled far beyond the venue, turning the entire city into one giant pre-party. São Paulo wasn't just hosting a concert, it was embracing a cultural moment it had been starving for. Bad Bunny, the Puerto Rican superstar who flipped the music industry on its head and never once toned himself down, stepped onto that stage for 2 back-to-back nights that literally shook São Paulo to its core. This wasn't just loudspeakers and flashing lights. The ground felt like it was moving. The crowd felt unstoppable. And the message was clear. This was bigger than music. This wasn't just another tour date stamped on a schedule. This was his first ever performance in Brazil, a moment years in the making. Spotify's 2025 Global Top Artist arrived in a country that had been streaming him non-stop, memorizing lyrics in Spanish just to feel closer to his world. Fans didn't just show up knowing a few hooks, they knew every word. And he delivered like he owed them something. But here's where it gets wild. Spotify didn't treat this like a normal concert weekend. They didn't settle for a couple posts and a playlist refresh. No. They had a bigger play in motion. What they built in that city before the first beat even dropped is what still has people talking today. And once you see it, you'll understand why. Days later, Spotify pulled the curtain back on something called Puerto Rico Mundo, which basically means from Puerto Rico to the world. And that name alone, it wasn't subtle. It was a statement. This wasn't some lazy pop-up with posters on the wall and a QR code slapped on the exit. This was a full-blown universe, built piece by piece, room by room, with serious intention behind every detail. They didn't just decorate a space in São Paulo, they transported people. Step inside, and you weren't in Brazil anymore. You were dropped straight into the emotional core of Bad Bunny's 2025 album, Debí Tirar Más Fotos. That project was already one of the most talked about releases of the year, raw, personal, soaked in Puerto Rican identity, nostalgia, pride, and storytelling that hits you right in the chest. The kind of music that makes you pause because it feels too real. And Spotify didn't let it live only in headphones. They turned it physical. You could walk through it, hear it echo off the walls, see the colors, feel the textures. Every corner carried emotion. Fans, content creators, and media were invited inside, not just to look around, but to experience it. And experience is the right word, because this wasn't passive. It felt like stepping inside the album itself. This wasn't a tour, it wasn't some guide walking you from point A to point B with a rehearsed speech. It was pure exploration. Every door you pushed open felt like unlocking a secret. Every room carried its own mood, its own sound, its own emotion. You weren't being told what to think, you were discovering it for yourself. The design team did not play around. No shortcuts, no filler. Every corner had intention behind it. Every texture, every sound layer, every visual cue tied back to a specific moment in the album's emotional and sonic journey. It felt mapped out with precision, like someone obsessed over getting it exactly right. The second you stepped inside, the outside world faded. São Paulo? Gone. Notifications? Forgotten? Deadlines? Didn't matter. All that existed was the universe Benito Antonio Martinez Ocasio, the man the world knows as Bad Bunny, had poured his heart into. And now that world wasn't just streaming in your headphones, it was alive around you. People who walked through it said they felt something unexpected. Not just nice visuals, not just cool lighting. They said it hit deeper. Because the album itself is honest. Debí tirar más photos wasn't built to chase trends or collect trophies. It was built from something real, and you could feel that in every step. This album isn't just a playlist, it's a love letter. A complicated one, a proud one, sometimes even a painful one. A love letter to Puerto Rico, to the streets that shaped him, the culture that molded him, and the people still living that reality while the rest of the world watches from a distance. And when you stepped into the world Spotify created, that love letter stopped being abstract. It became physical, three-dimensional, surrounding you from every angle. You didn't just see it, you felt the weight of it. And the way the crowd reacted said everything. These were Brazilian fans, thousands of miles from Puerto Rico, singing in Spanish about an island many of them have never seen in person. And still, every single one connected. No hesitation, no confusion. They understood the emotion behind it. That's what real music does. Because real culture doesn't carry a passport. It doesn't ask for translation approval. When something comes from a genuine place, it moves. It crosses oceans, borders, languages, and lands straight in your chest like it belongs there. It hits the same whether you grew up in San Juan or São Paulo. That's the level Bad Bunny has built over the years. Something rooted but global at the same time. And that weekend in São Paulo? It wasn't hype. It was proof, displayed on one of the biggest stages possible. What made it even more electric? The people. This didn't feel like some cold corporate activation with security lines and polite applause. It felt alive. Strangers were hugging like old friends. Groups were taking photos in front of the installations and instantly turning their screens to show each other like, "Look at this." The energy wasn't forced. It was organic. Creators who had built entire platforms around their love for Bad Bunny's music were walking into rooms themed after songs that shaped their lives. And some of them couldn't hold it together. You could see it in their faces. This wasn't content farming. This was personal. These tracks weren't just background noise to them. They were memories. Breakups, wins, late-night drives, real life. There's something powerful about stepping inside art you've only known through headphones. When you can stand in it, when visuals wrap around you, when sound hits from every direction, something shifts inside you, something cracks open that you didn't expect. And here's where it gets even more interesting. São Paulo wasn't the starting point. Spotify had already launched De Puerto Rico Mundo in Mexico and Colombia before Brazil ever saw it. Different countries, different histories, different connections to Latin music. And yet, the reaction stayed the same every time. That kind of consistency? That's not marketing luck. That's cultural impact. People didn't just enjoy it, they lost their minds. Some cried openly, some walked out quiet and overwhelmed. Others came back the next day and dragged their friends with them like, "You have to see this for yourself." That kind of reaction doesn't happen by accident. And think about this, 3 different countries across Latin America, 3 different crowds, same emotional response every time. That says something loud and clear. Bad Bunny isn't just charting hits right now, He's leading a cultural moment. He's more than a streaming giant. He's a cultural anchor. Someone who makes people thousands of miles away from Puerto Rico feel seen, understood, and part of something bigger than their daily routine. That's rare. And Spotify recognized it. They didn't just chase clout. They didn't slap his face on a banner and call it a day. They built something that respected the weight of the album. There's a big difference between using an artist's fame and honoring their art. And people feel that instantly. You can always sense when a brand just wants attention versus when it wants to serve the music and the audience. This experience did both. Every room matched a theme. Every visual matched the emotion of the track it represented. Nothing felt random. Nothing felt rushed. It was intentional from start to finish. All of that sent one clear message: respect. Respect for the music. Respect for the fans. Respect for Puerto Rican culture and what it means to the people who live it every day, and even to those who love it from thousands of miles away. Nothing about it felt careless. Nothing felt rushed. It felt intentional. So by the time the actual concerts kicked off, the crowd was already on another level. The energy was different, charged, elevated, almost explosive. Most shows try to build momentum from zero. This one started at 100. That immersive world had done something stage lights and a killer set list alone can't do. It built context. It deepened the connection before the first step onto the stage. Fans weren't just excited, they were emotionally invested. So when Bad Bunny finally appeared and that first beat hit, it wasn't just the start of a concert. It felt like a release, a culmination of everything that had been building all weekend. Every emotion, every memory, every lyric they had been holding inside came pouring out at once. 2 nights. That's all it took for São Paulo to lock those moments into memory for years. These weren't just events on a calendar. They were lived experiences. And when people walked out, they weren't done. They were still buzzing, still floating, not quite ready to return to normal life just yet. And here's the part nobody can ignore. This wasn't just a win for one artist or one weekend. It was a blueprint. A statement about where global music culture is heading right now. For years, the industry tried to act like certain markets were secondary, like English had to be the center, like crossover meant dilution. That narrative is cracking. What happened in São Paulo proved something loud. You don't have to shrink your identity to go worldwide. You don't have to translate your soul to be understood. Bad Bunny didn't adjust his language. He didn't soften the themes. He didn't package his culture to make it easier to consume. He brought it exactly as it is, raw, proud, specific. And the world met him there. Spotify saw it too. They didn't try to repaint the story. They amplified it. They invested in the culture itself, not just the numbers behind it. And that's why it hit different. This weekend wasn't just about streams going up or clips going viral. It was proof that authenticity scales, that when something is real enough, detailed enough, rooted enough, it travels farther than any algorithm push ever could. And if this is the direction global music is moving, then what happened in São Paulo might not just be a highlight. It might be the shift everyone looks back on and says, that's when things changed. And let's talk numbers for a second, because emotion is powerful, but impact shows up in data too. Streams spiked again. Social clips flooded timelines. Local businesses reported record traffic. Hotels were packed. Ride shares were slammed. The ripple effect was real. This wasn't just a concert-boosting playlist stats. It was a cultural wave hitting an entire city. When music can move people emotionally and economically at the same time, that's influence on another level. And here's what makes it even louder. And this wasn't a nostalgia act. This wasn't a farewell tour. This was an artist still in his prime, still evolving, still experimenting. That matters, because it shows this isn't the peak. It's momentum. The industry watches moments like this closely. Promoters, labels, platforms, they all take notes. When you see thousands of fans singing in another language without hesitation, when you see immersive art installations drawing repeat visits, when you see cross-border loyalty like that, you adjust your strategy. What happened in São Paulo wasn't random hype. It was alignment, culture, timing, authenticity, execution, all clicking at once. And if this is what one weekend can generate, imagine what the next move looks like. Because when an artist builds this kind of foundation, the next chapter doesn't get smaller. It gets louder. That's how you know it worked on every level. The music hit, the production hit, the immersive world hit, the cultural moment hit. And Bad Bunny? He stayed exactly who he's always been. This is an artist who has never watered himself down for broader appeal, never reshaped his identity to fit someone else's comfort zone. He shows up as himself every time and basically tells the world to catch up. And in São Paulo, he didn't deliver what was safe. He didn't deliver what was expected. He delivered what was real. That's why that weekend mattered way beyond headlines, beyond streaming spikes, beyond viral clips. It showed what happens when an artist stands fully in their truth, no edits, no filters, and trusts the audience to meet them there. And it also showed what happens when a platform actually respects that truth enough to build something worthy around it. Spotify didn't shrink the story. They amplified it. They created space for it to breathe. And the audience? They were ready, hungry, waiting for something that actually meant something. Puerto Rico Mundo wasn't just branding printed on a banner in a hallway. It was a declaration, a statement that the music, the culture, the pride, and the identity carried from that island are not small. They are not niche. They are not side notes in global music. They are shaping forces. For one unforgettable weekend in São Paulo, the world didn't just hear that truth. It felt it with every sense. Now I want to hear from you. Did this moment prove that global music has officially shifted? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more deep dives like this, make sure you subscribe to Juicy Reel and turn on notifications, because we're just getting started. That's how you know it hit on every single level. The music connected, the production elevated it, the immersive world amplified it, the cultural moment locked it in, and Bad Bunny? He stayed solid. No compromises, no polishing himself down to fit a bigger market. He has never reshaped who he is just to make things more comfortable for a wider audience. He shows up as himself every time and lets the world decide if it can keep up. And in São Paulo, he didn't give people what felt predictable. He didn't choose the safe route. He gave them what was real. That's why this weekend mattered beyond flashy headlines and streaming spikes. It proved what happens when an artist commits fully to their truth and refuses to dilute it. It also showed what happens when a platform takes that truth seriously and builds something worthy around it. Not a gimmick, not a shallow promo run, something with weight. And the audience? They were ready, hungry, waiting for something that actually meant something deeper than just another night out. Puerto Rico Mundo wasn't just a catchy phrase hanging on a banner. It was a declaration. A reminder that the music, the culture, the pride, and the identity carried from that island are not small stories. They are not background noise. They are global forces shaping conversations far beyond borders. For one unforgettable weekend in São Paulo, the world didn't just hear that message, it felt it. Now I want your take. Was this a turning point for global music culture? Drop your thoughts in the comments right now. And if you want more breakdowns that go beyond surface headlines, subscribe to Juicy Reel and turn on notifications, because we're only getting louder from here. What happened in São Paulo wasn't random hype. It was alignment, identity, culture, vision, platform, audience, all locking in at the same time. That's rare. Bad Bunny didn't bend to the world. The world leaned toward him. And that's power. Not manufactured fame, not algorithm luck. Cultural gravity. When an artist can carry their language, their roots, their pride, and still pack arenas thousands of miles away, that's not a phase. That's legacy in motion. And if this is where global music stands right now, then the old rules are done. The gatekeeping is fading. The idea that you have to translate yourself to win worldwide? Dead. São Paulo felt it. Mexico felt it. Colombia felt it. And trust me, this isn't the last stop. Now it's your turn. Was this just a massive concert weekend? Or was it a cultural reset? Drop your take in the comments. And if you want more deep, unfiltered breakdowns like this, hit subscribe to Juicy Reel right now and turn on notifications. We don't just cover headlines here, we decode the moment.
Really wrong, like that Kid Rock concert.
Oh my God! Help! He's having a heart attack! Is anyone here a doctor?
No fucking way someone's a doctor here.
Bad Bunny just delivered one of the most politically explosive Super Bowl halftime shows we've ever seen. It wasn't just music, it was a statement. For the first time in history, the entire halftime show was performed fully in Spanish. And it didn't just make noise, it shattered records and became the most viewed halftime performance of all time. That alone had people talking, but the political tension around it made everything even louder.
You always have to be proud about who you are and being yourself.
For years, Bad Bunny has openly criticized ICE and the Trump administration, and that history made this moment feel loaded. Some conservative voices were so upset that they even pushed an alternate all-American halftime show idea featuring Kid Rock as a way to counter the NFL's choice.
God bless America!
They suck and we'll win.
That's how heated this got. But here's where it gets wild. Bad Bunny didn't just perform hits. He packed the stage with subtle symbolism and layered messages that many believe were aimed straight at political power. Every detail felt intentional. Every lyric carried weight. This wasn't random entertainment, it felt strategic. To really understand why this performance sparked so much debate, we need to understand who Bad Bunny is and why his voice carries power. He's been compared to Drake, with some even arguing he's surpassed him globally. And he's proudly from Puerto Rico, which matters. Puerto Rico has been a U.S. territory since 1898, a complicated political reality that adds serious weight to everything he represents on that stage. This is where the real tension kicks in. When Super Bowl officials announced that Bad Bunny would headline the 2026 halftime show, the reaction was instant and intense. In September 2025, the news dropped. A Puerto Rican artist who performs almost entirely in Spanish would take center stage at the biggest American sporting event of the year. That alone had people debating nonstop. Now, looking at his global numbers and sold-out stadiums, the choice makes total sense. He's one of the biggest artists on the planet. And let's be honest, music doesn't need translation to hit hard. The US already proved that with Despacito and Gangnam Style blowing up everywhere. You don't have to understand every word to feel the energy. During the announcement, Bad Bunny said, "What I'm feeling goes beyond myself. It's for those who came before me and ran countless yards so I could come in and score a touchdown. This is for my people, my culture, and our history." That line sounded powerful at the time, but looking back, it almost feels like a warning shot. Here's where it gets political. Bad Bunny has openly criticized the Trump administration in the past, and he hasn't been shy about where he stands. When he later announced his tour dates, fans noticed something major. There were no planned stops in the continental United States. In interviews, he explained the decision came from concerns that some of his fans could feel unsafe amid discussions around mass deportation policies. After the Super Bowl news went public, he hinted at the shift on Twitter, writing, "I've been thinking about it these days, and after discussing it with my team, I think I'll just do one date in the United States." That message hit like a bombshell and turned a halftime show into a full-blown political conversation. Bad Bunny hasn't exactly stayed quiet about the United States either. Back in 2017, after Hurricane Maria tore through Puerto Rico, he openly criticized what he saw as a slow and inadequate humanitarian response. While families were struggling without power and basic supplies, he used his platform to call attention to it. At a hurricane relief benefit concert, he even wore a shirt aimed at then-President Donald Trump that read, "Presidente, are you a Twitter user or a president?" That moment spread fast and showed he wasn't afraid to speak up. But his activism didn't stop at federal politics. In 2019, Bad Bunny hit the streets alongside artists like Ricky Martin and hundreds of thousands of Puerto Ricans demanding accountability from their own government. Over 500,000 people protested corruption and called for the governor's resignation. That wasn't just symbolic, it was historic. In 2022, one of his music videos spotlighted issues like unreliable utilities, gentrification in San Juan, and beach privatization. These themes connect to larger conversations about identity, control, and colonial history, topics he frequently weaves into both his lyrics and interviews. And yes, some of those same themes showed up again during his halftime performance. Fast forward to the 2024 U.S. presidential election cycle, and Bad Bunny once again stepped into the conversation. He shared clips of Kamala Harris criticizing Trump, especially after comedian Tony Hinchcliffe made a joke about Puerto Rico during a rally at Madison Square Garden. That post got massive attention, and beyond politics, he's also known for LGBTQ+ advocacy. In 2020, during an appearance on The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon, he honored Alexa Luciano, a transgender woman from Puerto Rico whose death had shaken the community. He used that spotlight to push for respect and awareness, showing that his platform isn't just about music, it's about people too. He stepped on stage wearing a black skirt and a white shirt that read, "They killed Alexa, not a man in a skirt." That outfit alone sent shockwaves through social media. It wasn't subtle, it was direct, emotional, and impossible to ignore. Some people praised him for using his platform to speak up. Others were furious. Either way, everyone was talking. That same year, Bad Bunny continued showing support for the LGBTQ+ community by appearing in drag in one of his music videos. He didn't just hint at support, he made bold creative choices that challenged expectations. For some fans, that made him fearless. For critics, it crossed a line they weren't ready for. There were other moments that stirred controversy too. At a New York Yankees game, he and his friends did not stand during the performance of "God Bless America." That sparked backlash online, with some accusing him of being disrespectful. Supporters argued it was personal expression. Critics called it unpatriotic. The divide grew even sharper. All of this built up to what became one of the most debated halftime show selections ever. When it was announced he would headline the Super Bowl, even Donald Trump weighed in publicly. Several Republican politicians echoed similar reactions, some claiming they didn't know who he was, others saying the NFL made a bad call. The culture clash was loud. One major topic tied to all of this is U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, commonly known as ICE. ICE operates under the Department of Homeland Security and says its mission is to enforce immigration laws and protect national security. However, the agency has faced strong criticism from many activists and public figures. During the Obama administration, ICE publicly emphasized focusing on individuals accused of serious crimes. Under the Trump administration, policies expanded enforcement priorities to include a broader range of undocumented individuals. That shift became a huge flashpoint in national debate, and Bad Bunny has been one of the artists openly critical of how those policies impact immigrant communities. With the expanded enforcement push, things didn't just stay tense, they exploded. Beginning in December 2025, Operation Metro Surge brought thousands of federal agents from U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement and related agencies into Minnesota, especially in Minneapolis and St. Paul. People reported aggressive raids at workplaces, houses of worship, schools, and neighborhoods, sparking fear and outrage in immigrant communities and beyond. Arrests of both undocumented immigrants and U.S. citizens didn't calm things. It fueled massive protests that sometimes put demonstrators and police head-to-head. Then, in early January 2026, everything shifted into national crisis mode. On January 7th, ICE agent Jonathan Ross shot and killed 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good, a U.S. citizen in Minneapolis during enforcement activity. Good had dropped her young child off at school and stopped to monitor agents in her neighborhood. Witnesses say there was no immediate threat when shots rang out, killing her almost instantly. Thousands protested her death, and police arrests followed as emotions boiled over across the city and country. Just a few weeks later, on January 24th, a second fatal shooting rocked the region. Federal agents killed 37-year-old ICU nurse Alex Jeffrey Pretty during a separate confrontation tied to the same enforcement surge. Officials claimed Pretty approached officers with a firearm, but video and family accounts muddied that narrative, showing him holding a phone and trying to help someone who had been knocked down by agents moments before. His death intensified outrage and drew even wider protests demanding accountability. By January's end, the Twin Cities and other U.S. cities were awash in demonstrations, memorials, and calls for change. Protesters organized major strikes and nationwide actions, demanding the withdrawal of federal agents, legal accountability for officers involved in the deaths, and even the abolition of ICE itself. Thousands took to the streets, and clashes with law enforcement, including arrests, became common as frustration with the operation's scope and tactics spread nationwide. So the stakes were crazy high for Bad Bunny, an artist who has openly criticized the U.S. government and immigration enforcement, especially after the nationwide tension over ICE and federal agents. Conservatives hammered back hard. Corey Lewandowski, a senior advisor at the Department of Homeland Security, even claimed that ICE agents would be in the audience at Bad Bunny's halftime show. Other Homeland Security officials echoed that idea, turning a performance announcement into a political flashpoint. Meanwhile, critics insisted an American should headline the Super Bowl halftime show, even though Puerto Rico is officially part of the United States. Supporters fired back that fact all over social media. Eventually, Bad Bunny addressed the controversy during his monologue on Saturday Night Live, saying he was still proud and excited to perform, and emphasized how honored he was to represent his Latin culture on that massive stage. When asked why the National Football League picked him, Commissioner Roger Goodell said something straightforward. He's one of the most popular entertainers in the world. That's what the NFL tries to do. Pick artists who bring entertainment and excitement to the biggest halftime audience on earth. He also made it clear that despite all the backlash, there were zero plans to cancel the performance. The goal has been to attract younger audiences, and he pointed out that no halftime pick ever escapes criticism, no matter who it is. In reaction, right-wing group Turning Point USA, founded by Charlie Kirk and now led by his wife Erica Kirk, didn't just sit back. They announced they would host their own alternate all-American halftime show featuring Kid Rock a week before Bad Bunny's performance. That version was meant to counter the NFL's choice and appeal to fans unhappy with the Spanish-language show, which turned out to be one of the most talked-about halftime broadcasts in recent memory. When Bad Bunny won his first Spanish-language Album of the Year at the Grammy Awards, he didn't keep it light. He made it personal. In his acceptance speech, he said, "I want to dedicate this award to all the people that had to leave their homeland, their country, to follow their dreams." That line alone hit deep. Then he added, "Before I say thanks to God, I'm going to say ice out. We're not savage, we're not animals, we're not aliens. We are humans and we are Americans." That wasn't random. That was a message loud and clear. After all that build-up, the politics, the criticism, the headlines, it felt like his Super Bowl halftime show was guaranteed to explode into a direct protest. People expected banners, speeches, maybe even a straight call-out of ICE or Trump. But instead, he flipped the script. Rather than going fully confrontational, he chose celebration over chaos. He leaned into culture, unity, and symbolism. But trust me, the messages were still there if you looked closely. From a bird's-eye view, the performance felt like a journey through Puerto Rico and broader Latin culture. The visuals had layers. The choreography told stories. It even gave off vibes similar to Lil Wayne's A Milli video with its constant motion and raw energy. But this wasn't just style for the sake of style. The stage itself was designed to resemble Puerto Rico's sugarcane fields. And here's the wild part. That massive green field wasn't grass at all. It was people dressed in green, moving together as one. On Reddit, one user wrote, "This calls out Puerto Rico's slave history and being exploited for its resources and labor. America invaded Puerto Rico in 1898 and devalued their currency, appropriated the land, turned large agricultural areas to grow sugarcane. This resulted in loss of poverty across Puerto Rico." Whether you agree with that take or not, the symbolism had people talking non-stop. During the performance, he played a snippet of Daddy Yankee's hit Gasolina and told the crowd, "You're listening to music from Puerto Rico, the barrios, and the projects." That line wasn't just hype, it was pride. He was making it clear where this sound came from and who built it from the ground up. Then he joked on stage saying, "Sorry guys, I just can't roll my arms. I don't know what's wrong with my tongue, but I'm gonna disappoint you in this video." That playful moment made it feel real and unscripted, like he was just being himself in front of the whole world. At one point, he handed his Grammy to a young boy on stage. Social media instantly started speculating, with some claiming the child was Liam Ramos, a boy reportedly detained by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. But that wasn't accurate. The child was actually a young actor named Lincoln Fox. Still, the symbolism of passing the award to a child had people reading between the lines. He layered the show with cultural shout-outs too. He invited Tota, the 85-year-old owner of Caribbean Social Club, on stage. That club is one of the last of its kind in New York, surviving waves of gentrification. Bringing her into the spotlight felt intentional, like honoring the old guard while the world watched. Even the stage props had people analyzing every detail. A taco stand labeled Vias Tacos sparked debate. Some online said it referenced Pancho Villa, the revolutionary often described as the only person to invade the U.S. Others pointed out it's simply the name of a real taco shop. Maybe it's layered meaning. Maybe it's coincidence. Either way, people were dissecting it non-stop. When it came to the food stands, the coconut stand, nail salon stand, taco stand, one Reddit user wrote, "Poverty is a big topic of conversation here. The coconut stand, nail, salon stand, and taco stand emphasize how Puerto Ricans and, in general, how in Latin America you have to hustle and get creative to get by." That take hit hard, because the theme of hustle and survival has always been part of the story. Nothing on that stage looked random. Every piece felt like it meant something. In many Latin American communities, opening small food stands is just part of survival. It's normal to walk down a block and see family-run businesses everywhere, hustling day and night to feed their families. That everyday grind was reflected all over the stage. Even boxing made an appearance, and that wasn't random either. In places like Mexico and Puerto Rico, boxing has long been seen as a path out of poverty, a real shot at changing your life through discipline and grit. Then came one of the most unexpected moments of the night. A couple got engaged and then married right there during the performance, with Lady Gaga singing at the ceremony. And yes, reports said the wedding was real. Some viewers loved the romance. Others argued that having Gaga close out that segment was symbolic, suggesting it reflected a pattern where Latino culture is celebrated, but often framed as background entertainment. The internet was buzzing with theories. The celebrity presence didn't stop there. Faces like Cardi B, Jessica Alba, and Pedro Pascal were spotted throughout the show, adding even more star power. It felt massive, layered, and intentional. But culture wasn't the only message woven into the performance. There were sharper political undertones, too. At one key moment, Ricky Martin stepped forward and sang the chorus of Bad Bunny's song, "What Happened to Hawaii." The lyrics hit hard. "They want to take away my river and the beach, too. They want my neighborhood and for Grandma to leave because I don't want them to do to you. What happened to Hawaii?" That line alone sparked major conversation. The reference to Hawaii touched on historical tensions surrounding how the United States acquired the islands in the late 19th century, a process that involved political maneuvering, economic interests, and eventually annexation. For many, the comparison highlighted concerns about land, culture, and displacement. Whether viewers saw it as bold commentary or layered symbolism, it was clear the message wasn't random. Every lyric, every guest, every prop felt like it had weight behind it. At one point in the performance, a voice said, "We're still friends. We're still just allies. Ah, but let us put one more here." Then came the line about World War II, martial law, and control tightening up. The message was subtle but sharp. It referenced the complicated history between the United States and territories like Puerto Rico, where military presence and political control have long been debated. Right after that, the stage shifted dramatically. Power lines appeared to explode, performers fell to the ground, and chaos filled the screen to symbolize the island's ongoing power outages. That hit home for many viewers. One Reddit user wrote, "Storms and poor electrical infrastructure are a constant issue on all U.S. territories. Longest I personally went without power was 2.5 months on the island I lived on." The frustration around infrastructure in Puerto Rico has been a serious topic for years, especially after hurricanes exposed how fragile the electric grid can be. Some residents argue that the federal response and funding have not always matched the scale of the problem. That tension was clearly woven into the performance. Then came a powerful visual. Bad Bunny walked out holding the Puerto Rican flag, but not just any version. This one had the light blue triangle, often associated with Puerto Rican sovereignty and independence movements. That detail mattered. The darker blue triangle typically reflects the island's current territorial status, while the lighter shade has historically symbolized a push for self-determination. In fact, after 1948, the original independence flag and pro-independence expressions were restricted for years under local law. So that light blue flag wasn't random at all. At the very end, Bad Bunny spoke in English for the first and only time, saying, "God bless America." Then the screen lit up with 20 different flags from across North, Central, and South America, including the United States and Puerto Rico. He spiked a football that read, "Together, we are America." And behind him flashed the words, "The only thing more powerful than hate is love." He didn't scream. He didn't rant. He didn't go nuclear. He layered it. Culture, history, unity, subtle protest, pride. Whether people loved it or hated it, one thing is clear. It wasn't just a halftime show. It was a statement. If you want more deep breakdowns like this and the real stories behind the headlines, make sure you subscribe to Juicy Reel so you don't miss the next one.
NFL, dude, you had that. I don't even want to say the faggot's name because, like, it's just like, what? Somebody give me his name. Just come say his name. I want to say, you know, what I'm talking about the halftime show guy, the Puerto Rican, right? Puerto Rican.
Bad Bunny?
Bro, yeah, that fucking faggot. Like, dude, it is so crazy that this is America now. Like, back in the day, dude, the NFL was the fucking standard of being a fucking man.
A massive UFC fighter jumped online and went off on a loud, ugly rant about Bad Bunny's Super Bowl halftime show, and he got almost every fact wrong. The internet didn't let it slide either. They corrected him in real time, clip by clip, post by post. And trust me, watching that meltdown unfold was way more satisfying than anyone expected. On February 8th, 2026, at Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara, California, Bad Bunny stepped onto that stage and made history.
And now every fucking year, the NFL, I think they all get together around a table and say, you know what, guys? How do we fucking ruin this sport? How do we gay it up? How do we fucking ruin it? Well, I'll tell you what, why don't we bring a gay foreigner who doesn't speak fucking English and have him perform it? Like, get the fucking, and you have like, yeah, dude, it's like, the NFL is like fucking pathetic these days. So even like the NFL players can probably hate it. Yeah, no. NFL's gay. I think we'd all agree the NFL got real gay.
He became the first Latino solo artist to headline the halftime show almost entirely in Spanish, and he did it without watering anything down. Then came the surprises. Lady Gaga popped out. Ricky Martin hit the stage. At one point, there was an actual wedding in the middle of the performance. Yes, a real one. And somehow, 380 people were dressed as grass, which sounds fake, but it's completely true and still hilarious.
Anyways, you might not know these, but I'm doing the Super Bowl halftime show. Very happy. I'm very happy, and I think everyone is happy about it. Even Fox News. And if you didn't understand what I just said, you have 4 months to learn.
128.2 million viewers tuned in, making it the fourth most watched halftime show ever. Only Kendrick Lamar's 2025 record breaker, Michael Jackson in 1993, and Usher in 2024 ranked higher. The Spanish-language broadcast alone peaked at 4.8 million viewers, the highest ever for a Super Bowl halftime show on Spanish television. That wasn't just a performance. That was a cultural moment. Social media exploded in a way the NFL had never seen before. The halftime show pulled in 4 billion views in just 24 hours, a 137% jump compared to the year before. That's not hype. That's raw data. His album De Tiara Moss photos moved 250,000 units the following week, up 191% from the week before and the biggest sales week of his entire career. Apple Music reported his streams shot up to 7 times his normal rate right after the performance ended. Every metric said the same thing. This wasn't just big, it was dominant. And that's exactly why what happened next feels so ridiculous. About 10 days later, at a UFC Fight Night Media Day in Houston, ahead of his bout with Anthony Hernandez, Sean Strickland randomly launched into a rant that nobody asked for. No one mentioned Bad Bunny. No one asked about the NFL. No one brought up the halftime show. He just grabbed the mic and started swinging at the air. Then it got awkward fast. Strickland said, "Look at the NFL, dude. I don't even want to say the EFS name because it's just like air. Somebody give me his name." He was mid-rant and didn't even know the name of the artist he was attacking. He literally had to ask a reporter in the room to tell him who he was mad at. That's when the internet knew this was about to get messy. Once someone finally said, "Bad Bunny," Strickland doubled down instead of backing off. He went on a heated rant, claiming the NFL used to be the standard of being a man. And now, every year, they supposedly sit around asking, how do we ruin this sport? He kept pushing the idea that bringing in an artist who performs in Spanish somehow ruined football. Then he wrapped it up by saying the league had become pathetic and repeating that the NFL had got real gay lately. That wasn't a slip. That was the tone the whole time. And here's where it completely falls apart. The biggest and most embarrassing mistake in that entire outburst is simple. It's basic facts. Bad Bunny is Puerto Rican. Puerto Rico is a United States territory. That means Benito Antonio Martinez Ocasio is an American citizen by birth. Calling him a foreigner, an immigrant, or someone who doesn't belong isn't just disrespectful. It's flat out wrong. This wasn't some deep political debate. It was someone loudly criticizing a performance while not even knowing the most basic information about the artist. Once that one fact is corrected, the whole rant crumbles instantly. And that's exactly why the backlash hit so fast. Because when your argument is built on something that easy to disprove, the internet doesn't need long to respond. Strickland built his whole argument on a claim he never even checked. He went after a performer whose name he didn't know and whose background he clearly didn't understand. And just to make this crystal clear, Bad Bunny speaks English. Performing in Spanish was a choice. It was a celebration of his culture and a nod to more than 70 million Latino Americans the NFL acknowledged by putting him on that stage. That context never seemed to enter Strickland's thinking. And this is where the situation shifts from one bad opinion to something bigger. Sean Strickland is a 30-7 UFC middleweight fighter who briefly held the title. In September 2023, he shocked the world by upsetting Israel Adesanya and grabbing the belt. Then in January 2024, he lost it to Dricus du Plessis. The rematch in February 2025? Another loss to du Plessis. Heading into Houston to face Anthony Hernandez, he was carrying 2 straight title defeats on his record. And that matters when you look at the intensity he brought to that media day. There's also real history behind him. Strickland has spoken openly about a rough childhood that shaped his personality and how he presents himself publicly. That background explains some of the edge, but it doesn't excuse launching into a rant built on facts that don't hold up. Strickland has been open about his past. He grew up with a father he describes as physically and mentally abusive, and those experiences left real scars. During his teenage years, he has said his grandfather exposed him to neo-Nazi ideology, which added another heavy layer to an already unstable environment. He was expelled from school in 9th grade after committing a crime. According to Strickland himself, his mother taking him to an MMA gym is what helped redirect his life and give him structure. None of that background excuses reckless public behavior, but it does help explain why, at 34 years old, he can still sound like someone whose worldview formed in his teens and never fully evolved. That context matters when you look at what happened next, because the timing of this rant was wild. Strickland was just coming off a 6-month suspension when he sat down at that media day. The Nevada State Athletic Commission had suspended him and fined him $5,000 after he stormed into the cage at a regional MMA event he wasn't even fighting on and punched another competitor. And that competitor? He was reportedly a police officer outside of MMA. That's the headspace he was in walking into Houston. The suspension was directly tied to anger management problems. Strickland had just finished serving discipline for violent behavior linked to poor impulse control, and his big return to the spotlight was a heated rant that sparked outrage. That timing alone raised eyebrows. And it didn't stop there. Just a week before that media day, he had posted a meme showing himself as an ICE agent standing next to his opponent, Anthony Hernandez, a Mexican-American fighter portrayed wearing a sombrero and poncho. That wasn't some random joke that missed the mark. It showed a pattern, the same tone, the same angle, the same type of messaging. The internet reacted fast. Former NFL quarterback Robert Griffin III delivered what many called the sharpest response in sports that year. He posted, "Sean Strickland got hit so hard by a foreigner that he forgot Puerto Ricans are U.S. citizens. Not to mention that this misogynist crybaby would get tossed like salad if he ever stepped foot on a football field in the NFL. Worry about not getting knocked out in your next fight." And he came with receipts. Attached was a clip from UFC 276 in July 2022, where Brazilian fighter Alex Pereira knocked Strickland out cold. The foreigner line wasn't random, it was layered. A direct reminder that someone from another country had already put him flat on the canvas. RG3 understood exactly how to flip the narrative, and he didn't miss. Journalist Jemile Hill stepped back and asked a bigger question. What other major sport consistently produces behavior like this from its athletes and shrugs it off as part of the culture? Her focus wasn't just Strickland as one person. It was about what MMA promotes, what it tolerates, and what it protects. Online, the reaction split the way it always does. Critics pointed out the obvious. Strickland called a U.S. citizen a foreigner while not even knowing his name. Supporters tried to argue the NFL had made the wrong entertainment choice, but that argument was shaky from the start. 128 million people tuned in. The numbers showed massive engagement. Billions of views followed. That's not a silent protest. That's public approval at scale. And here's what makes this even more interesting. Bad Bunny saw the resistance coming long before Strickland ever spoke. The backlash began the moment the NFL announced him on September 28, 2025. President Donald Trump called the selection absolutely ridiculous. Then Speaker of the House Mike Johnson labeled it a terrible decision and even suggested Lee Greenwood as a better alternative. That wasn't random noise. That was organized pushback. Then DHS Secretary Kristi Noem announced that ICE agents would be stationed at the Super Bowl. That statement hit differently, especially since Bad Bunny had already excluded mainland U.S. dates from his world tour out of concern that ICE activity near his shows could put fans at risk. He had clearly been thinking about the climate long before the halftime stage lights ever turned on. This wasn't just about one rant. It was about culture, politics, sports, and who gets to define what American looks like, all colliding on the biggest stage in the country. Bad Bunny answered all of it the smoothest way possible on Saturday Night Live in October 2025. Calm, smiling, completely unbothered, he told critics in Spanish that they had 4 months to learn the language. No yelling, no panic, just confidence. Then he stepped onto the Super Bowl stage and did exactly what he said he would do. He performed for 128 million people. He brought out Lady Gaga. Ricky Martin joined him. A real wedding happened in the middle of the halftime show. And the week after, his album Debí Tirar Más Fotos jumped 191% in sales. That's how you respond. Not with tweets, but with results. California Governor Gavin Newsom even declared February 8th Bad Bunny Day. The 68th Grammy Awards had already crowned Debí Tirar Más Fotos Album of the Year before the halftime show ever happened. The momentum was already there. The Super Bowl just amplified it. Meanwhile, Turning Point USA organized an all-American halftime show alternative that same night, headlined by Kid Rock. That stream pulled 21 million YouTube views. The official Bad Bunny halftime show? Around 61 million views on YouTube in the same window. Even the viewers who tried to boycott him were outnumbered nearly 3-1 by the ones who tuned in. And while all that played out online, Strickland stepped into the Toyota Center in Houston on February 21st to face Anthony Hernandez, with the noise still echoing. Strickland's night in Houston didn't end the way he planned. Anthony Hernandez stopped him by TKO in the third round. That snapped Strickland's 8-fight winning streak. Hernandez walked away with a $100,000 Performance of the Night bonus and a 9-day medical suspension attached to the win. Just like that, the spotlight shifted. Here's the twist no one can ignore. The controversy around Strickland's rant brought extra attention to the fight card. More clicks, more clips, more headlines. His angry speech about a man whose name he didn't even know likely drove more eyes to the very event he was promoting. That irony doesn't need help. It speaks for itself. And at the center of this whole situation is something that deserves to be said clearly. Strickland stood at a press conference, asked a reporter to name a global superstar he was criticizing, called a U.S. citizen a foreigner, and casually used language meant to tear people down. All of it built around a narrow version of masculinity so fragile that a performer dancing on a stage felt like a threat that required a public outburst. That's not sharp commentary. That's not clever humor. That's a grown man in his mid-30s still operating from ideas formed in his teens and never seriously challenged. Meanwhile, Bad Bunny kept moving forward. Bigger stages, bigger numbers, bigger moments. If you want breakdowns that go deeper than headlines and show you what's really happening behind these viral moments, hit subscribe to Juicy Reel, because we're just getting started. And here's the part nobody can ignore. While Strickland was fighting ghosts at a press conference, Bad Bunny was fighting and winning on the biggest stage in entertainment. One man was arguing about what America used to be. The other was standing in front of 128 million people, showing what America actually looks like right now. This wasn't just about football. It wasn't just about music. It was about visibility. Culture shifts don't ask for permission. They show up, perform, and let the numbers speak. And the numbers were loud. 4 billion social views. A 191% album surge. Millions more tuning in across language barriers. That's not a niche audience. That's mainstream power. And here's the real lesson. Outrage is loud, but growth is louder. The people who tried to frame the performance as the end of something accidentally helped turn it into the beginning of something bigger. Every rant created curiosity. Every complaint drove clicks. Every viral argument amplified the moment. Meanwhile, Bad Bunny didn't argue back in comment sections. He didn't spiral. He didn't chase headlines. He performed. He sold records. He collected awards. He kept moving. That's the difference between reacting and building. Meanwhile, Bad Bunny headlined the 4th most watched halftime show in Super Bowl history. He performed in the language of his culture in front of 128 million people. The week after, career best album sales, a Grammy for Album of the Year already secured. and film credits lined up alongside Edward Norton, Javier Bardem, and Viggo Mortensen waiting ahead of him. And Strickland didn't even know his name. That gap right there, that's the whole story. One man building a global legacy across music, film, and culture. The other launching a rant based on facts he never checked. One expanding his reach. The other shrinking his argument in real time. Numbers don't lie. Awards don't lie. Box office credits don't lie. The stage was massive, and so was the response. Now I want to hear from you. What did you honestly think about Bad Bunny's halftime show? Drop your take in the comments. And if you want more deep dives that cut through the noise and break down moments like this without the fluff, subscribe to Juicy Reel right now. We're only getting bigger from here. This is the story of an artist who stood in front of 128 million viewers, got paid almost nothing, and then watched his career explode in ways money alone could never buy. Bad Bunny hit the stage at the Super Bowl halftime show on February 8, 2026, and history was made for more than one reason. But the real shock? It wasn't the lights, the crowd, or the headlines. It was the paycheck. Everyone thinks the number must be insane. Hundreds of millions watching, global buzz, non-stop coverage. So how much did he actually make? Around $1,000 a day. That's basically the Screen Actors Guild American Federation of Television and Radio Artists minimum. And that's it. No massive appearance fee. No performance bonus for 128 million eyeballs. No extra check for being the first solo Latino artist to headline that stage. On a regular tour night, he brings in between $1.5 and $2 million per show. That means the biggest stage of his life came with a serious pay cut. Sounds wild, right? But that tiny check unlocked something way bigger than a direct deposit ever could. What the National Football League and Apple Music did pay for was the spectacle, and that bill was massive. Reports estimate the production landed somewhere between $10 and $15 million. That money covered everything splashed across your screen. The 380 performers dressed like bushes and grass sliding across the field. The surprise guests popping out of nowhere. Even the real wedding that unfolded mid-performance. It looked unreal because it was built to be. But here's the twist. Bad Bunny himself? Basically unpaid talent inside a giant high-budget machine. And that's not rare. The Weeknd reportedly dropped $7 million of his own cash to level up his 2021 halftime show. Katy Perry once said she didn't want an asterisk next to her name for playing that stage. These artists know the real equation, and it has nothing to do with the check handed over that night. Because the second the lights went out, the real payoff kicked in. Within hours, the streaming surge hit like a tidal wave. His Spotify numbers jumped 470% in the US alone and 210% worldwide. By the next morning, he wasn't just trending. He was holding the top 6 spots on Spotify's US Daily Top Songs chart at the same time. That's not hype. That's dominance. Apple Music revealed that his plays skyrocketed to 7 times higher than a normal day. That's not a bump. That's a takeover. His track DTMF shot from number 9 straight to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, pulling in 43 million streams in just 1 week, an 85% jump. Digital downloads up 262%. Meanwhile, Bale Unforgettable made almost the same power move, leaping from number 19 to number 2 with streams climbing 141%. The numbers weren't creeping, they were sprinting. And the album Behind the Storm? Debí tirar más fotos. It moved 250,000 album equivalent units the week after the show, a 191% surge and the biggest week of Bad Bunny's entire career. But here's what makes it even crazier. Just 1 week before the Super Bowl, on February 1st, the album had already won Album of the Year at the Grammy Awards. Becoming the first Spanish-language project to ever take that crown, He walked into Super Bowl Sunday already dominating the game and left with the momentum turned all the way up. Even Ricky Martin, who popped up as a surprise guest, saw his U.S. streams jump 145%. That stage didn't just shine lights, it multiplied careers. Streaming money doesn't show up as one clean, flashy number you can circle and say, that's it. But what it does is way more powerful. More streams mean more algorithm love. More algorithm love means bigger playlist placement. Bigger placement means fresh listeners discovering the catalog. And those listeners, they turn into ticket buyers when the next tour drops. It's a chain reaction that keeps stacking up long after the lights fade. The Super Bowl halftime stage isn't just a performance slot. It's the biggest free marketing machine in American entertainment. Whoever stands in the center of it walks away with something money can't simply purchase. Attention at scale. And when Bad Bunny stepped into that spotlight, the ripple effect was instant. The social numbers tell the story even louder than the charts. Total social media consumption of the halftime show exploded to 4 billion views in just 24 hours, a 137% jump over the previous year. The National Football League saw its 3 most viewed social posts ever come from this single performance. One clip captioned, "Only thing more powerful than hate is love," racked up 179 million views on Instagram, the most viewed post in NFL history. Another clip of Bad Bunny naming the countries of the Americas pulled 168 million views on its own. Even the press conference shattered records. It drew 63 million views in its first 48 hours, becoming the most watched Super Bowl press conference ever on YouTube. And the halftime performance video, 66 million views and counting. That's not just exposure, that's cultural impact hitting at full force. For comparison, the rival All-American halftime show, organized by conservative groups on YouTube and headlined by Kid Rock, pulled in 21 million views. That sounds big, until you stack it next to 4 billion in 24 hours. That kind of reach blows past core fans and crashes straight into casual viewers, global audiences, and people who had never once searched Bad Bunny before, but woke up the next morning typing his name into their phones. According to Nielsen, the halftime show averaged 128.2 million viewers. That places it 4th all-time, behind Kendrick Lamar's 133.5 million in 2025, Michael Jackson's legendary 133.4 million in 1993, and Usher's 129.3 million in 2024. Peak viewership during the game's second quarter hit 137.8 million Americans, the highest peak ever recorded in U.S. television history. Even more telling, the halftime show itself outperformed the game's overall broadcast average. That's power. But the number that really explains why the National Football League wanted Bad Bunny front and center came from Telemundo. The Spanish-language broadcast of the halftime show averaged 4.8 million viewers, the most-watched Spanish Super Bowl halftime ever. NFL senior VP Marissa Solis made it clear, league growth is mathematically impossible without Latino audiences. And the data backing that up? It's loud and undeniable. More than 39 million Latino fans follow the National Football League in the United States. Latino viewership climbed 11% in the years leading up to this game, and Spanish-language broadcasts jumped 34%. A 2025 projection from McKinsey & Company estimated that by 2035, Latino fans would drive 1/3 of all U.S. sports market growth. That's not a side audience, that's the future of the business. So when Bad Bunny stepped onto that halftime stage, he wasn't just booked talent, he was a calculated move. A long-term investment in a fan base the league had been steadily building toward for years. The strategy was clear and the numbers backed it up. Now zoom out to his bigger financial picture and the impact gets even sharper. Heading into 2026, his estimated net worth hovered around $100 million. Forbes ranked him 10th on its 2025 highest-paid musicians list with $66 million earned that year alone. And get this, $30 million of that came purely from Spotify streams. He pulled in 19.8 billion streams, making him the platform's most streamed artist of the year. Then there's his Puerto Rico residency, a 30-show run titled No Me Quiero Ir de Aquí. Economic impact estimates ranged from $176 million on the low end to $733 million on the high end, depending on the method used. One artist, one location, hundreds of millions flowing through the economy. That's not just star power, that's leverage at a national scale. What one artist can do for an entire regional economy is massive. And none of that comes from a Super Bowl paycheck because that paycheck basically doesn't exist. The real return from the halftime stage isn't a wire transfer. It's a cascade. Streams surge, albums post their strongest weeks, social reach multiplies overnight. Casual viewers turn into long-term fans, future tour dates sell out faster, and an artist's cultural weight jumps to a whole new level that no traditional ad campaign could ever manufacture. That stage handed Bad Bunny a spotlight so bright that everything he built before it got amplified, and everything he builds after it now starts from a higher floor. That's the hidden power of the moment. But one part of this story can't be boxed into charts and percentages. He performed the entire Super Bowl halftime show in Spanish, the first artist in history to do that. That decision wasn't random. Months before kickoff, he had publicly said he would not tour parts of the United States out of concern for his predominantly Hispanic fan base and the broader climate they were facing. So when he stepped onto that stage and chose to perform fully in Spanish, it wasn't just artistic preference, it was a statement, and the timing made it impossible to ignore. Donald Trump called the selection absolutely ridiculous. After the performance aired, he posted that the show was absolutely terrible and one of the worst ever. The backlash didn't stop there. Several conservative lawmakers filed complaints with the Federal Communications Commission, triggering a formal investigation on February 16, 2026. Weeks later, the FCC confirmed the show had not broken any broadcast rules. Case closed. But here's the twist that flips the whole narrative. Back in October 2025, Bad Bunny appeared on Saturday Night Live and challenged viewers to learn Spanish before the Super Bowl. After the halftime show aired, Duolingo reported a 35% spike in new Spanish learners during and immediately after the broadcast. That's not just entertainment. That's cultural momentum moving in real time. A halftime show sparking a language learning surge isn't something you can neatly plug into a revenue chart, but it says everything about influence. The financial story and the cultural story are locked together. One spreads the message, the other measures the impact. On February 8, 2026, he stepped onto that stage, earned roughly $1,000 a day, performed fully in Spanish for 128.2 million viewers, including a record 4.8 million watching on Spanish-language television, and shifted the conversation in a way numbers alone can't fully explain. And here's the part nobody can ignore. The morning after the Super Bowl, the headlines weren't about how much Bad Bunny got paid. They were about impact, influence, shift. The conversation moved from dollars to dominance, because when an artist can headline the biggest stage in American television, perform fully in Spanish, face political backlash, spark federal complaints, ignite a 35% spike in language learning, and still walk away with record-breaking streams. That's not luck. That's positioning. The halftime show didn't make him famous. He was already there. What it did was elevate his ceiling. It widened his audience. It locked his name into a space that used to feel untouchable. Corporate brands saw it. Stadium promoters saw it. International markets saw it. And most importantly, fans who had never pressed play before suddenly did. This is why the $1,000 headline misses the bigger picture. The real payout shows up in the months and years that follow. Faster sellouts, stronger negotiating power, bigger global leverage. The check was small, the return, massive, and the ripple didn't slow down in the weeks that followed. It sped up. Ticket platforms reported search spikes tied directly to his name. International media outlets that had never centered Spanish-language albums suddenly ran front-page features. Late-night panels debated the performance for days. That's not just buzz. That's repositioning. Before the halftime show, he was already a global force. After it, he became unavoidable. The difference matters. Brands that once hesitated now lined up. Festival organizers recalculated their headliner strategies. Even radio programmers who had dragged their feet on Spanish records started adjusting rotations. Exposure at that scale forces hands. And here's the deeper play: leverage. When an artist proves they can command 128 million viewers without switching languages, without diluting identity, without playing it safe, the negotiating table looks different. Contracts shift, percentages change, creative control expands. That's the invisible currency. The halftime show wasn't about a single night. It was about resetting the baseline. Every future tour announcement, every brand partnership, every release now launches from a higher starting point. That's compounding influence in action. A small upfront check, a global audience unlocked, and a career that moved into a new tier almost overnight. That's how you turn visibility into power. He brought out Ricky Martin and Lady Gaga and turned the field into a global spectacle that racked up 4 billion social media views before the next day even ended. Bad Bunny saw his US streams jump 470%. His album delivered the biggest sales week of his career, and 3 of the National Football League's most viewed social posts ever all came from this one performance. That's not random. That's impact stacked on impact. The Federal Communications Commission reviewed the broadcast and found no violations. Duolingo reported a surge in Spanish learners. Donald Trump criticized the show twice. Noise everywhere. Momentum still rising. The halftime stage has never been about a paycheck. Every artist who steps into that spotlight knows the deal. The payment isn't wired, it's amplified. The show offers something bigger, a moment so massive that it lifts everything connected to your name. He arrived already dominant, Spotify's most streamed artist of 2025, a Grammy Awards winner, a 9-figure earner. The halftime show didn't create that success. It magnified it for people who had never been watching. No check, just scale. And everything that followed proves he knew exactly how to flip that scale into long-term power.
Puerto Rico, I want to dedicate this award to all the people that had to leave their homeland, their country to follow their dreams. Before I say thanks to God, I'm going to say eyes out. We're not savage, we're not animals, we're not aliens, we are humans and we are Americans.
The story doesn't start under the bright lights of the Super Bowl. It kicks off months earlier, when Bad Bunny made a move that confused a lot of industry insiders. Instead of chasing the UK with safe, radio-friendly hits, he dropped an album that felt personal, raw, and unapologetically Puerto Rican. In late 2024, he released Davy Tarara Moss Photos, a project soaked in memory, culture, and identity.
Also, I want to say to the people, I know it's tough to not to hate on these days. And I was thinking sometime we get contaminados. I don't know how to say that in English. The hate get more powerful with more hate. The only thing that is more powerful than hate is love. Please, we need to be different. If we fight, we have to do it with love. If we don't hate them, we love our people, we love our family, and that's the way to do it, with love. Don't forget that, please. Thank you.
The title translates to, I should have taken more photos, and that alone tells you this wasn't built for charts. It was built from the heart. No English hooks slipped in to make it easier for global playlists. No watered-down verses. The entire record stayed in Spanish, intentional and bold, like he was daring the market to either step up or step aside. When the album landed on the UK Albums Chart, it debuted at number 13. Respectable? Yes. Explosive? Not quite. It wasn't some overnight takeover. It felt more like the industry nodding quietly, saying, "We see what you're doing." But here's the twist. Bad Bunny was already playing in a different league. He had dominated global streaming platforms for years, smashing records across continents.
Bad Bunny used the sky blue Puerto Rico flag at the Super Bowl. You might be used to seeing this flag with navy blue instead, but what does each flag mean? Time for a little Puerto Rican history. This was the first flag of Puerto Rico, the revolutionary flag of Lares. It was knitted by Mariana Bracetti Cuevas during the first uprising of Lares in 1868. It was flown there, the first revolt against Spanish colonizers. After that, pro-independence Puerto Ricans in New York City in the 1890s created this flag. And that flag would become the official flag with sky blue, white, and red. After Spain, the United States colonized Puerto Rico in 1898. Between then and the establishment of Puerto Rico as a Commonwealth in 1952, it was a felony to display the Puerto Rican flag in public. There was even a gag law which made displaying a Puerto Rican light blue or Lares flag punishable by up to 10 years in prison. In 1952, the color of the Puerto Rican flag changed from sky blue to navy blue, resembling the flag of the United States. And later, the gag law was deemed unconstitutional. For many, the light blue flag is a symbol of freedom, independence, and also a historical learning moment.
The UK, though, has always moved at its own pace, cautious and calculated. The UK market rewards what it already knows. It leans into comfort. It sticks with tradition. And even though Latin music had been gaining ground for years, a fully Spanish-language album hovering near the top still felt like a stretch to many industry watchers. So number 13 became this invisible ceiling. Week after week, the album stayed right there. No dramatic spike, no sudden UK viral wave, no explosive headline moment, just steady numbers and quiet consistency. It almost felt like the narrative had already been decided, global superstar, but only moderate traction in Britain. Clean, predictable, contained. And that part matters more than people realize. Chart takeovers rarely come out of nowhere. They build pressure behind the scenes. By early February 2026, the project looked locked into its lane. It wasn't rising, it wasn't falling, it was stable, almost frozen in place.
At number 64 jersey, that was not a random number. It was a direct shot at the government for initially reporting only 64 deaths from Hurricane Maria, hiding the thousands who actually died. That little house you saw on stage, it was a symbol of resistance against the rich tourists and the developers, gentrifying the island and pushing the local families out of their homes. His shout-out to Toñita in Nueva York was a deep cut. It was a nod to the legendary owner of a beloved cultural hub for the Puerto Rican community in New York City. And the kid holding his Grammy was a gut punch about the children separated from their families at the border by harsh ICE policies. Those figures on the power lines directly reference the chronic blackouts from his protest song El Apagón, which slams the privatization of the island's power grid. Now, bringing out Ricky Martin wasn't just a fun cameo. It was a powerful reclaiming of Puerto Rican pop history on the biggest stage in America. And the Puerto Rican flag he used had a light blue triangle. That is not the official one. It's the specific flag of the pro-independence and anti-colonial movement. And finally, his last line, he reframed America to mean the entire continent, the North, the Central, and the South, a defiant message of unity for all of us.
Then February 8th, 2026 hit Super Bowl Sunday, and suddenly the rules started bending. Super Bowl 60 pulled in over 100 million viewers in the United States alone, one of the biggest TV audiences of the year. That halftime stage has always belonged to mainstream English-language pop giants. That's the tradition. That's the formula. But on February 8th, 2026, Bad Bunny stepped onto that stage and flipped the script in real time. He performed entirely in Spanish, not halfway, not softened for wider appeal, not some bilingual compromise to make executives comfortable. The setlist stayed loyal to the catalog that built him, track by track, word by word. On the biggest broadcast stage in American television, that decision carried weight, and everybody felt it. The Super Bowl halftime show has hosted global icons for decades, from polished pop royalty to stadium rock giants. Traditionally, it spotlights artists who slide easily into American mainstream culture. But Bad Bunny didn't reshape himself to fit that mold. He didn't translate his identity. He brought his world with him and made the world watch. The impact was instant. Social media lit up within minutes. Clips flooded timelines. Streaming numbers jumped within hours. Major playlists adjusted fast. Search traffic exploded like people were racing to catch up. The energy wasn't subtle. It was loud and measurable, but the most fascinating reaction didn't unfold in the United States. It happened across the Atlantic. While American viewers argued about stage design and surprise guests, something concrete was shifting inside the UK charts. And this wasn't a gentle rise. It wasn't the slow burn of radio rotation. This was pressure finally breaking through. This wasn't the usual small boost artists get after a big TV moment. It wasn't a polite spike and fade. It was a full-on surge, the kind that makes chart analysts pause, refresh the data, and check twice before going live with the numbers. Within days of the broadcast, UK streams for Davy Tarara Moss Photos shot up fast, and it wasn't just one catchy single pulling the weight. Multiple tracks from the album started climbing at the same time. The whole project moved as a unit. That's not random hype, that's demand kicking the door open. This wasn't momentum slowly building in the background. It was momentum arriving all at once. And when the official UK chart numbers dropped, the shift was impossible to downplay. The week after the Super Bowl, the UK albums chart delivered the shocker. Davy Tarara Moss Photos jumped from number 13 straight to number 2. An 11-place leap in a single week is rare territory. Albums don't just vault like that without a serious external trigger. This wasn't gradual growth, it was a sharp market correction. Only Olivia Dean's The Art of Loving held it from the number 1 spot, and even that gap was tight. Meanwhile, the UK singles chart echoed the same energy. DTMF rocketed up 39 places to land at number 4, marking Bad Bunny's highest UK singles position ever. OL pushed into the top